All right, everybody. Good night. Good evening. Hello. This is Steve with Real Progressives. And tonight's broadcast is going to be addressing this crazy thing that our movement has latched onto, which is credentials. This idea that somehow or another, in order to be a truth teller, somebody's got to have credentials. What's your job history? Where did you get your education from? Why should I believe you? Why should I trust you? Etc. And, my answer to that question typically is, well, you tell me, what are your credentials to judge my credentials? Where are you coming from? Are you a PhD in knowing people's credentials? Or are you just some opinionated asshole that thinks that you have a right to judge somebody based on that? Go do your homework. Do your homework. And at the end of the day, we have people all over the place on this team that talk about things like modern monetary theory. They talk about the Flint, Michigan crisis. They talk about the friggin', crisis in New Jersey, where you've got, friggin' people like dealing with all kinds of issues, poverty. You got people dealing with stuff in California with the Medicare or single-payer healthcare. Well, what is their fucking credentials to say it'll work? What is your credentials to say it'll work? At the end of the day, we've got people that are fighting tooth and nail in this movement. Some of them don't even have a friggin' high school education, but they're putting themselves out there trying to bring awareness to subjects. Now, you may not like somebody. You may not like their approach. You may not like their style, whatever. But the reality is that if you're actually looking to make change in this country, you've got to ask yourself, what is it that you're looking for? Are you looking to see that somebody went to Harvard and Yale and that preaches the orthodoxy, that preaches the establishment narrative? Does that make you feel better about their credentials? Or do you think that someone that is, as we'll call heterodox, meaning outside of the orthodoxy, does that mean that they somehow or another need to have an orthodox education for you to feel like their credentials are worthwhile? Let me tell you something. I know plenty for myself as it pertains to modern monetary theory. Me, Steve Grumbine, I do. But I don't know it as much as Warren Nosler. I don't know as much as Stephanie Kelton. I don't know as much as Randall Ray. I don't know as much as Pavlina Cherneva. I don't know as much as any of these folks that were the original gangsters of MMT that were there from day one when they sat there and peeled back the layers of the onion to dig down to the very, very bottom to figure out how this shit worked. I don't have those credentials. Neither does Ellis. Neither does Joe Firestone. And Joe Firestone is a PhD. Joe Firestone has brilliance all over him. But he didn't sit there and go to some MMT school to learn this stuff. Why is that? Because MMT is only taught in a few schools. Why is that? Because all economics is taught from 1971 beyond. They're not talking about what has happened once we left the Bretton Woods Accord. They're still talking as if we're on the gold standard. Now, if you ask me what my credentials are, I'd tell you straight up. I've got a Master in Business Administration from University of Maryland, University College, and I have a Master of Science in Technology Management from University of Maryland, University College. I also have an undergraduate in Bachelor of Science in Information Systems Management. I also have an undergrad certificate in IT project management, and I also have a graduate certificate in strategic management of technology and innovation. Used to have a PMP, project management professional, used to be a Cisco certified design professional, Cisco certified network professional, Cisco certified sales expert. And that in a bag of chips gives you a bag of fucking chips and $127,000 worth of student loans. So my credentials really stem from my middle finger half the time, because even though I've got all these credentials, even though other people have all these credentials, What you're taught in the mainstream school is worth a piece of toilet paper. The only thing you're taught is how to speak fluent ignorant. They do not teach proper economics in high school. They don't teach proper economics in regular college. They teach you monetarism. They teach you as if the gold standard is still alive and well, and all the gold standard laws and logic apply. So it's no wonder our entire nation is screwed. It's no wonder most of the world is screwed, because most of the textbooks are screwed. When you go through it step by step by step, Say's law, not a real deal. Quantity money theory, guess what? Not relevant, not pegged to gold, no longer relevant. All sorts of stuff they teach you, the Phillips curve. All these different things that they teach you are completely and utterly useless. They serve no purpose. They don't actually get you anything. They get you nowhere. But they do teach you what not to do, ironically. They give you a long rope to understand the history of economics back in the day. But they don't describe to you what chartalism is. They don't describe to you properly what neo-chartalism is. And more importantly, they don't describe to you what happens to a fiat currency that is not pegged to any friggin' commodity. Okay? So let's say hypothetically, I had a PhD from Harvard, and you thought that that was mighty special. You thought that was really swift and special. But then when I sat there and said, well, the United States government is broke. We need tax dollars to pay for these things. That Harvard education would be a piece of shit. It would be a bunch of bunk. But for people out there who have appeals to authority, that gets them all excited. But the reality is that those pieces of paper are just a long chain of indoctrination that teaches you mostly wrong economics. You scatter a few things in there because, God damn it, you can't get out of your own way. Sometimes the truth is just a frickin' truth, and you can't help it, and it doesn't matter, and everybody kind of agrees. But one of the things that we don't agree on is that I'm going to somehow or another allow my children to die because we lack keystrokes somewhere. Somehow or another, we've run out of keystrokes, so my children have to die. Wrong answer, Charlie. Wrong answer. And that's the same thing that you should be saying to yourself. When these big-ass friggin' economists come out there, like Robert Reich, talking about how we got to tax to get money so we can pay for things. And you hear Joseph Stiglitz out there talking about how we got to tax to make some money back so we can pay for things. And you see in these mainstream articles from the Washington Post and New York Times saying, we've got a tax to pay for things. My God, the country's going bankrupt, Robin. We need to get some taxes in there to pay for things. You know that all the credentials in the world can't fix that level of stupid. All the credentials in the world can't fix that level of stupid. Now, to make this point, I went to a seminar in Washington, D.C. a few months back. I had the opportunity to meet Stephanie Kelton. I had the opportunity to meet Pavlina Cherneva and a host of others. And when I was there, I met James Galbraith. And by the way, I met Joe Firestone face-to-face that very first time. But I was sitting there watching these other mainstream economists sit up there and stroke their beards and give these really academic faces at the, you know, yeah, and they gave you this look like they really were pensive, like they were really thinking deeply about some really important subject. Reality is, immediately once they started scratching their chin, I almost screamed bullshit. Because the only people there that were telling any truth at all were James Galbraith, Stephanie Kelton, and Pavlina Cherneva. The other ones were mixing macro and micro, and they were mixing all these concepts, and they were sitting there. It was like I could have given a better presentation than some of these people, and they had wonderful credentials, couldn't have gotten better credentials. And, you know, I sit there and I think to myself, what is it that people think is important? And then I realize, ultimately, our nation is screwed because we believe the lies. We are the ones that dictate what happens up above, ironically. It doesn't matter about Citizens United. It doesn't matter. I mean, all this stuff matters. Don't take this the wrong way. But ultimately, it doesn't matter about voting. It doesn't matter about Citizens United. It doesn't matter about any of that. If we, the people, get unrested and we scream and yell and we make noise and we start really, really, really pushing on the levers of power, they are going to respond. But there are far too many of us that in these appeals to authority, to the Harvard and to the Princeton and to the Yale and to the Browns and to the friggin' Berkeleys and all the other freaking colleges, the Stanfords, et cetera. To all the folks that need that, well, tell me about your Wellesley background, your Wellesley education. What are you, a Rhodes Scholar indeed? How nice. Yeah. I mean, this is bullshit. I want to save lives. They want to freaking publish papers. Okay? Now, when I sat down and talked with various ones, who I won't mention specifically which ones said this, I will just leave it to your imagination. But as I talked to them and I said, I am ready to freaking go nuts. I'm ready to punch the taste out of these fools' mouths. I'm ready to go to the mat because people are dying because of these lies they're telling. And the answer from the non-Orthodox economists was, yeah, but you got to understand there's only a very few of us that have actually broken through. So we've got to be very delicate in how we talk. However, you guys down there, you guys need to give us air cover because the more you guys down there push up and force them to listen, the more opportunity they have to impact policy, to impact the direction presidents go, to impact the direction of the Federal Reserve, to impact the direction of business, and to direct the impact of our social public infrastructure. But if we believe that we don't deserve nice things, and if we believe that the government should be run like a household income, even though it is the currency issuer, well, then we can only blame ourselves, right? And this appeal to authority, as we look around and we try to find an economist that speaks the kind of bullshit that we do in our own home. Well, we've got to cut corners, guys. We're going to have to buy the off-brand ramen noodles today. We can't buy the other ones. Oodles and noodles are too expensive. We're going to have to drop down to blah, 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 dollar brand or 50-cent brand or quarter brand or whatever because we got to cut corners at the household budget. That's not how it works at the federal level, okay? So this appeal to authority pushes us even further because now what happens? This is very important. A state like California goes ahead and passes something like a universal healthcare bill in the state of California. Now, to me on the non-economic side, my heart swells with joy that people are fighting and pushing and changing the narrative. That's a great thing. They're pushing the boundaries. They're making a noise. They're bringing attention to a very real problem. However, to a fault, if I went down there with a microphone and a camera and interviewed all these people jumping for joy and asked them, how are you going to pay for your health care for all? They wouldn't be able to, we're going to tax this person. We're going to tax that person. We're going to do all these things. We're going to tax. Well, what happens in states where the taxation is high and where there is a situation where you basically have set the stage for businesses to say, I think we might want to move our operations to Texas where there are terrible people, running the show, but damn it, they give us a really good break on our tax rate. So when we look at this, this is a good news, bad news story because the states are not currency issuers. The states are currency users, meaning they have to tax in order to pay for these state-based programs. Okay, now, a state like California may very well be rich enough and have enough benevolence in it that it won't impact it the way it would other states. However, let me just say this. Other states will be looking and watching. And if they raise taxes through the roof, you can pretty much guarantee red states are going to turn their nose up at it. If they sit there and it starts gagging and they start having bottlenecks, you can pretty much guarantee that it's going to destroy it at a national level. Now, why does that matter, other than the fact that we want it to happen? Well, because the federal government isn't constrained like the states are. The federal government isn't constrained like the state of California is. So when California hits its break point, and all of a sudden they start having to make tough choices, you know those things, those tough choices that we have to make in our own household budgets? Well, those are the same kinds of tough choices that states have to make, cities have to make, townships have to make. When they don't have enough tax revenue to pay for their pensions and their programs and their social benefits, they go bankrupt. They go in the toilet. And then all of a sudden the businesses flee because you got to raise taxes in order to cover it. And then when the tax base is gone because the businesses leave, now you're screwed. This is why I advocate for a very, very strong central government and a very, very strong central issuing authority for the dollar, so that we can allow all the states to be fully funded by the feds, okay? This way, there's no more, you will not see another state left abandoned and destitute because businesses flee. No, instead, you will have a one-size-fits-all, at least in terms of where the funding comes from. Let the locals administer it however they want. It's not a matter of taking over how they run their shop, except keeping it so that the 14th Amendment is alive and well, and that nobody is discriminated against and everybody gets the same level of coverage. How you administer various programs should be based on the way the states value their own, the way things are run. But there should be very good guardrails and boundaries to ensure a certain level of care no matter what, so there's no way in the world that anybody is left in the cold. All right? Now, as you look and you think to yourself, who is the people with the credentials economically to go out there and speak to the cause and effect of a state-based program? State-based program that is highly dependent on tax revenues, okay? Now, take a look at my state here in Pennsylvania. The state of Pennsylvania is run by Republicans largely, even though Governor Wolf is a Democrat, okay? There are very few, if any, Greens in the state of Pennsylvania, at least in elected office. So you really are dealing in the duopoly of Republican and Democrat. And when you look at that and you realize the state of Pennsylvania, the state is $600 million in the hole. It's not a currency issuer, so that means it's going to have to make cuts. And that is terrifying to the people that live in the state. Now, why is it even more terrifying? Because we've got a clown in the White House that is being pushed to cut spending at the federal level too, which I just explained to you is 1,000% not necessary. Okay? So now, the money coming into each of the states, and that includes California, each of the states will be limited. The tub is shrinking because federal dollars are limiting. They're leaving. They're going down. Okay? The states will eventually run out of money too, while we have a $500 billion annual trade deficit. Now, I have no problem with the trade deficit whatsoever because we don't really get to pick and choose that. If we want to get a really good positive trade, then we've got to reduce salaries, we've got to reduce prices, we got to do the race to the bottom. Okay, that's the only way we improve our balance of trade. So it's a good place to be a net importer in many ways, because we can do different work in this country, right? We can fix bridges, we can go ahead and fix the energy grid, we can hire healthcare workers, we can hire educators, we can hire people that help out with childcare, on and on and on and on and on. So there's no shortage of work, regardless of what the UBI folks say. Sorry, folks, reality's not on your side here, okay? So with that in mind, when you look at, show me your credentials. Hey, I just laid out what I'm telling you. My opinions are informed by reading economic literature economic peer-reviewed papers, talking to the actual economists themselves, and actually investing time and thinking, now that I have this knowledge, how does that translate to the policy prescriptions I want to see implemented in the United States and, quite frankly, around the world? It's an informed position. I'm not the expert, and I've never claimed to be the expert. I've always stated that I'm John the Baptist. The Christ is over there. And if people don't like the religious reference, I don't know what to tell you. There's a little air jerk so that you don't feel like I'm being overly religious, okay? That said, what we need to see in this movement, in this country, quite frankly, is a return to seeking truth. Not appeals to authority, not frigging loyalty to parties, not loyalty to what mama said, but actually digging in and doing the fact-finding. Not seeking conspiracies because they're easier to understand than the actual math and the economics that is backing the truth up. People that do that, I have so little respect for. I mean, literally have like almost zero respect for those that seek a conspiracy versus actually seek trying to find the truth. And so as I think to myself, you know, what is it that truth means to me? Why do I care about these things, you know? I really think about it like this. And maybe this isn't something that you guys see, but to me, I look at this. This is my truth. You want to ask about credentials? How about that? Dr. Stephanie Kelton, Chair of Economics at UMKC, and also former Chief Economist of the Senate for the Democrats, and if you want to know, Bernie Sanders' top economic advisor. I don't know if you guys can read that or not, but let me just say this out loud. Her words, not mine. Okay? The truth, let me say that again. The truth is we're not broke. The US dollar comes from the US government, not the fucking private banks, not any of your weird fetish shit, okay? None of your bizarre conspiracy garbage. None of the worthlessness that's told by a fireside while somebody plays a freaking acoustic guitar and tells you about how the US is broke. None of that bullshit. This is straight from a doctor who actually studies and has put their career at risk being a truth teller. So let's start at the top again. The truth is, we're not broke. The US dollar comes from the US government, not from China, as we're led to believe. The US government is not, keyword, not constrained. It is the issuer of the currency, not the user. Folks, this is straight from Stephanie Kelton. This is not Steve Grumbine. What's your credentials, Grumbine? What's your credentials, Grumbine? My credentials are, fuck you. You know what I mean? That's what my credentials are. I put it out there like that because reality, at the end of the day, when you're trying to figure out what it is you stand for, I can tell you what I stand for. Okay, and what I stand for is this, right? Bottom line is MMT is already here. It is the system we live with. We have for quite a while. We only need to clue Congress in that we know. That's the bottom line, gang. That's my credentials. That's my thing. You want to check me out? You want to fact check me? Knock yourself out. But I'm telling you, guys, if you really want the things you say, stop these appeals to authority and start looking. I mean, this is stuff that is so basic that at the end of the day, we should all be able to friggin' know this stuff. But instead, for whatever reason, we don't know this. And we really end up screwing ourselves, which is obnoxiously amazing to me. We end up screwing ourselves by these appeals to authority. And I never quite understand why that is. But let me show you something. This is from Mike Norman, okay? And Mike Norman is a pretty sharp guy, okay? Pretty damn sharp guy. And he says the Clintons destroyed the Democratic Party. Okay, destroyed, Destroyed, destroyed. Bill Clinton, okay, and you see how this goes. His whole gang of fools that celebrated balanced budgets and selling the concept to the Democrats, okay, I mean, this is the stuff right here, folks, over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. Our friends in the Democratic Party, our friends that are vote blue sycophants, our friends that don't know economics, and our friends that are loud, proud, and dull as a frickin' plastic spoon, okay? They will sit there and brag about the Clinton balanced budget, and they will brag about Clinton's surplus, and they will brag, not realizing that the entire time they did that, ultimately what they were doing was celebrating austerity. They were celebrating cuts to the economy because taxes are literally deleted. This is not like speculative. I'm not making this shit up. I mean, this is the straight dope. And when you think to yourself, why would they do such a thing? Why would they celebrate such stupidity? And you know, you could easily come to the conclusion it's just because they're a Democrat and that's what Democrats do. Or you could come to a different conclusion. That conclusion might be that they don't know any better. And then you say to yourself, well, why is it that when I try and tell them, they sit there and ask for my credentials? And it's because they genuinely don't want to learn. It's too difficult to break from what they've always been told. And so rather than try to even do it, they would rather appeal to authority, and they would rather sit there and ask what my credentials are when I'm sitting here fighting for national universal health care. I'm fighting for national student debt forgiveness. I'm fighting for global green energy. Folks, every single thing that the New Deal, Bernie's New Deal, and Jill Stein's New Deal, the Green New Deal, all of that cannot be done using the antiquated lies that, quite frankly, the Republicans and Democrats eat and live by. It requires a new paradigm, even without even having to change the system. This is something else that is infuriating. The next layer of what are your credentials is the band of fools that are determined they have to tear the system down because they don't understand it. And ignorance is a horrible thing for voters, quite frankly, to have in their back pocket. Going to vote with ignorance, going to activate in ignorance, uniting around ignorance, building one another up in ignorance, living by the code of ignorance is a very, very dangerous thing. Because when you're surrounded by a bunch of people that tell you, hey, man, that's yeah, absolutely, right on, man. You don't even question it anymore. You stop digging. It's just low-hanging fruit. It's easy. The herd takes over. The groupthink takes over. And now all of a sudden you're locked back into that paradigm that the duopoly forces on us. You're no revolutionary. You're not even kind of a revolutionary when you do the appeal to authority, when you do the entire appeal to what always was. Don't tell me you're a revolutionary if you're looking backwards for your economic truths. The fact of the matter is that we didn't know what we know now then. We didn't have the body of knowledge and the body of research that we do then. Okay? So MMT, for those of you who don't know what it is, modern monetary theory. Modern monetary theory is a description of currency and the base financing, federal financing, the operations of the economy all over the world, wherever currency exists. It's not just in the United States. Though in the United States, MMT describes a sovereign, meaning that it's its own thing, its own legal entity here, okay? A sovereign fiat, by decree, fiat currency that is free-floating, meaning that it's not pegged to a commodity. In other words, the value is not set by some other commodity. Non-convertible, meaning you can't convert it to gold or anything like that. And it's simply there. It's a fiat currency. It represents an IOU or a tax credit, if you will. Okay? So MMT rightly describes the fact that taxes created an immediate need for employment and unemployment, okay? Taxes create unemployment. Sounds crazy, right? It's true, though. It's not like, we tax to make unemployment. No, what taxes do is it forces people to need pieces of paper to pay their taxes. That is how the government provisions itself. It doesn't require the money. It's the creator of the fucking money. It doesn't need your money, but it needs you to do the work. It needs you to do whatever it is you do in order to make it so that it gets itself provisioned. In other words, the public services, our military, our healthcare system, our energy grid, our airports, our air traffic control, all the other things, our police, our everything else that is public sector, public space stuff. All of that doesn't get paid for by taxation at the federal level, but taxes drive the need for the currency. That's what gives it its value. Okay? So that's what MMT is in a nutshell. And what it describes is a situation vastly different from the gold standard. So when you hear the gold bugs running around trying to tell us we're broke, trying to tell us we can't afford things, trying to talk about crazy debt, when the debt, guess what the debt is? The debt is literally savings accounts. It's all the untaxed dollars going back to the dawn of time. It's nothing. It's actually our national assets to the penny. So the fear of savings accounts and the fear of deficits, the word deficit sounds scary, doesn't it? A deficit is the difference between the amount we tax and the amount that we spend. That's a deficit. Or the difference between the amount that we tax and the amount that we spend could be a surplus. A surplus, though, in a federal situation does not mean the government has additional money to go out there and spend things. No, what it means is it deleted more money out of the system than it needed to. Okay? And so we're in a situation right now where these appeals to authority have prevented our progressive movement from doing amazing things. It has prevented us from being able to do amazing things and to unite around amazing possibilities. These people have literally kneecapped us with stupidity. And it doesn't have to be a kind word. It just needs to be the truth. And it's up to you to do the homework. We provide the links. We provide the backup. We provide the experts. It's up to you to do the footwork behind the scenes, to learn more and to educate. Because you're not going to get any of this stuff. Folks, you are not going to get any of this if you don't get what I'm telling you. You're not going to get a single freaking thing. You're going to just go round and round, bitching and whining that your government doesn't serve you. And I'm sitting here telling you, this is how it's fucking done. Now, it's your choice if you want to stay stuck. But you're staying stuck for all of us because it takes a tidal wave of populism to make this shit happen. But if you're going to sit there and get bored, it's boring, don't want to deal with that stuff, it bores me. Or if you want, well, it's too hard for me to understand, so end the Fed. End the Fed, right? Let me tell you what my problem is with ending the Fed and all these other people that throw up, hey, public banking, or hey this, or hey that. My problem with all that is, right here, right now, today, every single bit of the New Deal could be done right now without a single change. But instead, these people will sidetrack the entire argument and force us to split, which means there is no movement towards saving lives. There is no movement towards national health care because we can't get enough people together to actually fight for single payer. You get something done in California, but when the economy shrinks because the federal government is cutting spending and all of a sudden their economy starts tanking, guess what the narrative will be? Well, you guys already saw how bad the ACA was. We can't do government health care. Government shouldn't be in health care. You all saw how bad it worked in California because they don't know it's because the federal government cut spending and therefore everything went down. They don't know that because they don't care, because they get bored about economics. They don't want to hear about it. It's boring. They don't like it. So they check out. And by doing so, murder a bunch of people by their ignorance and their apathy. That's terrible, isn't it? You put it in those kind of terms, you realize that apathy is lethal to the people that require us to stand firm and stand tall and work to get these things to happen. So all these people, the blind leading the blind, you sit there and say, hey guys, do you understand what's going on here? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. You're messing up my vibe. I want this to happen. I'm not going to listen to you. It's terrible. It's terrible. And it all comes from some appeal to authority, some person that they like, some idea they want, and they don't really pay attention to the details. And that's how we get stuck with bullshit like the ACA. And that's how we get stuck watching someplace like California try to implement a single payer themselves without having a sovereign currency to back it. And then the whole country is on pins and needles praying to God that it works in California. So guess what will happen? It's going to take a long time because people are going to want to see how it works in California. They're going to want to see how it works. And then naturally, because the federal government is run by a friggin' crazy man right now, naturally what will happen is as the government stops spending money, California's economy will start drying up and they will have problems. Now what's going to happen? I'm going to blame it, I'm telling you, on how horrible single payer is and how horrible universal health care is and how we can't have nice things. You've been told here the why behind this, why I'm concerned. Other people are going to run around with their fist in the air, screaming and hollering, having parties, cracking open a Dos Equis, drinking some bubbly, doing whatever, firing up a blunt, I don't know. But they're going to be doing stuff that has nothing to do with evaluating the actual economics behind it, which all of us, by extension, are in limbo over, because now folks are going to be waiting to see. This is one of the most important facts we have to remember. We have to remember this. I don't want to remember this. I want to be able to just be blind and slip back into the matrix and eat my steak and look at the girl with the red dress and all the other shit. But unfortunately, I took the thing off the back, I snapped out of the frickin' matrix, and I see this bleak truth. And it doesn't have to be bleak. That's the thing. That's the part. It's not that it is bleak that's depressing. We all know it's bleak. What is bleak is the fact that our own people refuse to learn. So in order to have a better future, we're dependent on these people to go, it's just boring. That's just your econ thingy. It's just your silly little econ thingy. And that's where we're going to get stuck, my friends. That's exactly where we're going to get stuck. Now, I'll put this back up here because I think it's an important meme. I like this meme a lot. I might have worded it slightly differently, but I think this is the point. Folks talk about, well, if we ever implement MMT, then someday we can do these things. No, folks, MMT is here now. This is what we have. It's just being used against us currently. Again, let me say for the record, you never hear them say, hey guys, we gotta jack up taxes to pay for some more mother of all bombs. You know, we're kind of low on revenue to buy more bombs. You never hear that. Why don't you hear that? But you always hear it when you say, we want to save some American lives. We want to take the burden off of young kids leaving high school for having free college. We want to make that investment in our nation's future. What about inflation? The losers say, what about inflation? What, are you going to print more money? The fucking losers say stuff like that. Split-fingered waste people. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a lot of people that don't realize that printing the money was a gold standard operation. We don't print the money. We keystroke deposits. It's simple. You don't run out of money until you run out of nubs to key them in. So why would they say such awful, atrocious, stupid stuff that actually is lethal to the poor? And quite frankly, to all of us, because diseases that we may or may not contract over our lifetime that may not be profitable to the pharmaceutical industry will not get solved for. Why? Because there's no profit in it. And why is that? Why are we struck by that? Because our people want to talk about, what are you going to do, just print more money? You see these people, what are you going to just print more money? Oh, that's great. That's a great idea. Then we'll have inflation. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Stupid. Stupid. Just stupid. You know what causes inflation? Too few goods being chased by too many dollars. That is what causes inflation. Not too many dollars, too few goods. So guess what? Demand is there. You're not going to sit there and chase these things just because you have more money if you don't need it. No, the money is not the problem. The problem is too few goods to be bought. So when your production capacity declines, then all of a sudden you have the right moment for inflation. Because now everybody's chasing for these few scarce little items. The reality is that if we had production at an efficient level, all economics is efficiency. The fact of the matter is, we are never starved for pieces of paper. You'd have to be absolutely mentally deficient to believe that the U.S. borrows its own dollar from China. Think about how stupid that is. I mean, seriously, I've done this before, but I'll do it again just for effect. Excuse me, Mr. Chinaman, we've seemed to run out of U.S. dollars. Perchance, by chance, perchance, could you by chance, perchance, give us some more U.S. dollars? We're just running low. Think about how stupid that is. I mean, you'd have to literally be box of rocks dumb to believe that. Sorry. Now, it's life-changing to not believe it, though. Once you realize it's a lie, then we can force our government to act on our behalf. But who gives two shits if we're united? And most of our unity has dumb shits that are out there saying we got to cut spending because of the debt. We may as well let Republicans kill us rather than our own be too stupid to fucking fix our country. Why not just let the Republicans kill us so we can point over there at them? Why in the world would we let our own do the same stupid shit? It's ridiculous. And that, my friends, is what is going to kill us first. Sadly, it's not going to be the other side of the street. We got to clean our own side of the street. We clean our side of the street, there'll be no problems. We will have every one of these plans that we want, and then some, much, much more. Much, much more. Because progressives are always thinking. Unfortunately, there is a very, very regressive left in this nation. A very, very regressive left. And that regressive left is every bit as bad as the regressive right. And every bit as bad as the idiotic centrists that don't know whether they're coming or going. That regressive left is not progressive at all. They're nihilists. They want to destroy everything. And that, my friends, is lethal to my children. It's lethal to your children. And it's founded in junk science and junk economics, just as much as the right-wing junk science and junk economics. To be a progressive means you're seeking truth, not pet ideology. Not your pet ideology. I want this, so I've got to make all the facts line up to meet that. That's just as bad as all the religions you people like to bash and yell about, okay? That's another form of religion. I want it to be like Marx. It can't be anything if it's not by Marx. That's just as bad as the friggin' right wing. It can't be anything but end the Fed with Ron Paul. It's the same shit. Seek truth, and then the ideology will follow. Seek ideology, and you'll get nothing but lies because you will try to put square pegs in round holes and find things that don't fit so that you can make your pet ideology work. These appeals to authority, these appeals to this mass consensus, all this other stuff, there is a point in time where you have to say the herd's wrong. I'm going the other direction. I'm not following the herd. The herd is being led by loud, proud idiots. I need to make my own way. But I'd like for enough people to come so that we can save the frickin' planet and so that we can save our children. It's not enough to unite. It's not enough to be all together singing Kumbaya. It's a good start. It's a real good start, but it's not enough. I've said this before, I'll say it again also. If Tulsi Gabbard goes up there saying taxes fund spending, Tulsi Gabbard's a liar. If Bernie Sanders goes up there and says that taxes fund spending, Bernie Sanders is lying. If Jill Stein goes up there and says that taxes fund spending, Jill Stein is lying. If Ajamu Baraka goes up there and says that taxes fund spending, Ajamu Baraka would be lying. You see how this works? It's not a matter of protecting your heroes. It's a matter of a desperate journey, trek for truth so that we can survive. If you're just appealing to people's idiocy and believing that taxes fund spending, you're not doing anything revolutionary and you're not saving not one life. Not one. MMT is the only way right here, right fucking now, that actually saves lives. And MMT is not a policy, a prescription, a movement, or anything else. It's just a description of what is. And once you get rid of the lies, the myths, the legends, the conspiracies, then we can actually activate on it and make shit happen. Make shit really happen. So with that, I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's broadcast. Tomorrow night, I'll be live with Joe Firestone. And Sunday night, Ellis Winningham will be back with me. Have a good night, everybody. I'm Steve, and I'm out.